I think that there's something that was that I want to kind of underline in this conversation, which I thought was very interesting, is that the suicide and mental distress is often linked to the confusion of one's identity, and therefore the nature of one's true self, if we're to put it like that. So it's interesting because what's happening is that as an actor and as a storyteller, we are constantly full of stories. We're creating stories every day, every moment, and every second. And the thing is, why we made a film, and why I think why we wanted you to be in this film, was to share the empathetic connection one can experience together as a viewer in the audience, to be moved to realize oneself, to realize one's suffering through the suffering of the other, to realize one's connection to the other through this feeling of oneness, that I feel that storytelling can create a new pattern with one's identity, to break out of the old habits, to break out of the old mindscapes, to break out of the old storytelling and identities that one has with oneself. Because as you and I know, our beings are always moving. We are in movement. Our emotions move through us. And therefore, as a storyteller and as a filmmaker and as an actor, when stories move through us, we're able to cleanse our minds and our being somehow, and somehow maybe participate in the liberation of one's mind, body, and spirit at some point. And so, I just wanted to underline that, and maybe have your one last question would to be, how do you think storytelling, I've given you my view, but what about your view in terms of how can what is storytelling? What is that imprint on maybe the brain or one's consciousness? I know they're two different entities, but how can that create healing for people who are experiencing mental unwellness and anxiety and depression?
So it's been said that to be human is to have a story. Everybody has a story. Otherwise, they're not human. And there's a backstory. There's the story that's happening right now. There's a story about the future, and there is, in every story, there are elements. There are good people in the story, there are bad people, there's the sacred, there's the profane, there's the divine, there's the diabolical, there are sinners, there are saints, there are challenges. You fall down, you get up, you lose the girl, then she comes back, or the girl loses the guy, and then they come back and they live happily ever after. Every story is a love story in disguise. And there are very interesting things that happen along the way in stories, trials and tribulations, suffering and redemption. But ultimately, every story is a love story. Even tragedies are love stories gone wrong. So ultimately, every story is a love story. Even the story of depression is the aftermath of a story of love that went wrong, either self-love or love with what we call the other. That's what went wrong. Okay, so the love story somehow got hijacked or bamboozled into a tragedy with that outcome. So yeah, to be human is to have a story. And then I think one of the things we can do with this campaign is not only look at what people are saying is their story, but also what are the alternative stories, because for everyone's story, there are infinite other stories. For every thought, there are infinite other thoughts. For every scene, there are infinite other scenes. And one of the values of practices like vipassana or mindful awareness of body or mental space, or mindful awareness of the web of relationship, or mindful awareness of what is me, what is the self. All these practices actually allow you to witness your story and the different scenarios. And ultimately, with these practices of self-reflection, self-inquiry, transcendence, mantra practice, body awareness, awareness of mental space, awareness of perceptual experience, awareness of awareness, awareness of relationship, awareness of the ecosystem, the web of life. I know I'm listing off a lot of things, but each of these helps you realize slowly that you are the creator of your story. You're the producer, you're the choreographer, you're the director, you're the hero, you're the villain, you are the sinner, and you're also the saint. You are the divine, you're the diabolical. Now, you can choose which part you want to play while recognizing all the other parts are different aspects of yourself. So I think that's why spiritual practices, like meditation and like the contemplative inquiry that I have just mentioned, they can actually help you create a new story. What's the backstory? Well, it's over. What's the current story? I'm not feeling good. What's the future story? Where do I want to go? When I get to the mountaintop, what will I see? What are the challenges along the way? Who are the people who will help me, and who are the people who are going to knock me down? And when I'm knocked down, will I get up and embrace the people who knock me down, or knock them down either? So many choices. So, if the story was all good, by the way, it would be a boring story. I mean, if I went to a movie and all the people were really amazingly good, I'd walk out. I want to see the good guys win. I want to see the bad guys lose, but not all the time. If the good guys win in the end, or, they keep winning and the bad guys keep losing, but sometimes they win, that's a great story. So I think what we have to do with our very depressed world is to help them change their story so they can move in the direction personally, in the direction of more peace, of more joy, or more well-being, and ultimately connect with the source of all stories, which is the self.
Mm-hmm.